That was the very first thing I managed to say, though even calling it a sentence would have been generous. My voice cracked somewhere in the middle, half disbelief, half anger, and all humiliation. The words felt foreign the moment I spoke them, like they didn't belong in my own mouth. I had just walked into my living room, the one I paid the mortgage on every single month, only to find my wife, Jessica, sitting cross-legged on the couch with her two closest friends, sprawled around her like they owned the place. They were laughing, loud and careless, the kind of laughter people have when the joke isn't a joke but a shared cruelty. A private entertainment, and there, glowing in Jessica's hand, was my phone, not hers, not some communal device. Mine, the thing I kept in my pocket on my desk, plugged into my side of the bed, the device that held my personal conversations, my family messages, my work emails, my entire digital life. And she held it like it belonged to her. Jessica didn't look startled at all. In fact, she looked annoyed that I'd interrupted their little show. Her friends, though, their reactions told the truth. Leia let out a high-pitched giggle and immediately slapped a hand over her mouth like a child caught whispering secrets behind the teacher's back. But her eyes kept dancing with mischief. Peyton, who always tried to pretend she was the classy one, lifted her wine glass to her lips and sipped like she was hiding behind it, or hiding her smirk. She wasn't even looking at me. She was looking at Jessica, waiting for her to set the tone. Jessica finally glanced up at me. Not startled, not apologetic, just annoyed that I'd ruined her moment. "Relax, Marcus," she said, voice dismissive, like she was swatting away a mosquito. "It's just your phone, my locked phone." I shot back, heat flaring in my chest, "that you took while I was in the shower." Jessica tilted her head to the side, that condescending smile curving on her lips, the one she used when she wanted to make me look dramatic in front of others. She was good at that, turning me into the unreasonable one, while she played the calm, rational wife. "Oh, please," she said. "What are you hiding? A second life, an affair with the UPS lady?" That line, said with such fake innocence, made her friends snicker. Leia even pretended to gasp dramatically, her hand flying to her chest, but I wasn't laughing, not even close. "Give it back," I said, stepping toward her. She held the phone out toward me like she was complying, like she was being reasonable, but not before her thumb swiped across the screen, unlocking yet another menu. She hovered over my messages with a grin. "Wow, Marcus," she said, rolling her eyes. "Very original password, by the way. Your birthday, really." That was the moment something inside me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, but in a quiet, final way, like a rope that had been fraying for years finally giving out. "You think this is funny?" I asked. "You think it's cute to violate someone's privacy, to perform it like some kind of skit for your girls' night?" Jessica stood up then, eyes flashing defensively, her body posture shifting from playful to combative. "Privacy," she said, scoffing. "Marcus, we're married. There's no privacy. You should have thought about that before acting all secretive." "Secretive?" I laughed once, short, sharp, bitter. "You mean before you decided to become a thief in heels?" I turned to Leia and Peyton, who were now trying to blend into the couch cushions. "What?" I asked them. "You two enjoying the show? Is this your version of girl talk, mocking a man who pays the mortgage?" "Marcus, stop embarrassing yourself." Jessica snapped, stepping closer. "You always act like the victim. I just checked your phone. Big deal." "No," I said quietly. "You didn't check it. You went through it behind my back, laughed about it, and then performed it for entertainment. That's not curiosity, Jessica. That's contempt." Leia sank deeper into the couch. Peyton stared at her wine. Jessica's jaw tightened. "If you have nothing to hide," she said coldly, "why are you so upset?" "Because trust isn't about having something to hide," I said, holding her gaze. "It's about the right not to be treated like a criminal or a child." "You're being dramatic," she muttered. "I didn't commit a crime. Maybe not legally," I replied, "but morally, you crossed a line, and right now, you're still sprinting." Silence fell around us like dust settling after a collapse. Jessica flicked her eyes toward her friends. She hated losing, especially in front of an audience. "You think you're so righteous," she hissed. "You think you're the good guy. Please, you keep that phone locked tighter than Fort Knox. Maybe you're the one hiding something." I stared into her eyes, calm, cold, and unshaken. Then you better hope I'm not, I said, because if I start doing what you think I've already been doing, this house won't just feel tense. It'll feel empty. 3 sets of eyes widened. And with that, I walked out the front door, letting the heavy silence swallow the room behind me. Outside, the night air hit me like a wall. Cool, still, and mercifully quiet. The porch light buzzed overhead, casting a weak yellow glow across the concrete steps. I sat down slowly, elbows on my knees, phone in hand. My phone, the one that had just been passed around like a party favor. I wasn't hiding anything, but suddenly I almost wished I had been. Jessica used to say I made her feel safe, steady, predictable, reliable. Tonight, all I felt was watched. Mocked, betrayed, like the joke she told was really about me. That's when I saw it, a number in my call log. One I didn't recognize, 10 digits, no name, logged 2 days ago. I never called it, and then I noticed the messages. A short thread, short enough to look harmless, but the tone, the wording, the phrasing, it wasn't me. It didn't sound like me, didn't read like me, didn't match any memory I had, but it came from my phone. My chest tightened, slow and cold. I stared at the name at the top of the tiny message thread, Rico. I didn't know a Rico. We hadn't hired anyone named Rico. We hadn't scheduled house maintenance. I hadn't texted him. So who did? Inside the house, the muffled sound of Jessica's forced laughter carried through the window. But out here, the silence pressed in, thick and heavy. A stranger's name on my phone, a lie she hadn't prepared for, and a truth I could feel moving beneath the surface like a shark. The next morning, sunlight flooded the kitchen in sharp, bright stripes through the blinds. It should have looked peaceful, ordinary, but something about the room felt cold, sterile, like a stage set after the actors had already left. The coffee pot sputtered behind me as I poured myself a mug. Jessica walked in wearing a soft robe, hair in a messy bun, acting as if last night had been just a mild inconvenience instead of a crack spreading through our marriage. You changed your phone password, she said flatly, not a question, an accusation dressed as an observation. I took a slow sip of coffee. Yeah. She crossed her arms, leaning against the counter. Why? Because it's my phone. That's never mattered before, she said, raising a brow. You used to leave it everywhere, now you're glued to it. Guess I learned the difference between trust and access. Her jaw tightened. Then I said the name. Who's Rico? The air between us froze. Jessica blinked. Her fingers curled around the edge of the counter. What? She said too slow. I repeated the question. Clear, direct. She hesitated. Just a flicker, but I saw it. Then she did what she always did, grabbed the quickest lie within arm's reach. Oh, him. He's a plumber. A plumber. The lie was so fast, so neat, so rehearsed that my stomach knotted. A plumber. I repeated, yeah, she said. Leia recommended him. The sink was making that noise, remember? I stared at her, silent. She hated silence. Jessica shifted, suddenly uncomfortable. My phone was dead. She added too quickly. That's why I used yours. Your phone wasn't dead. I said quietly. I saw you using it that night. She froze. Okay, well, maybe it wasn't dead. She snapped, but I was in a rush, right? Sure, I stepped closer. I didn't say anything about the call, I said, but I do find it interesting that he asked what time I leave the house. Her eyes widened, panic flickering before anger rushed in to cover it. That's not what he meant, she said. You're twisting it. I'm reading it. I corrected that, shut her up completely. Her shoulders slumped. Barely, but enough. She stared at her coffee like she expected it to rescue her, and I simply walked away. Later that night, I got a text. Leia and Peyton want us to go to dinner tonight, just to clear the air. You coming, clear the air, right? I typed one word. Sure. We met at some overpriced tapas place with low lighting, tiny portions, and big egos. Jessica's friends loved places like this, expensive vibe, cheap sincerity. I arrived last, on purpose. They greeted me with fake warmth, forced smiles, and voices dripping with pretend empathy. We're so glad you came, Leia said, leaning forward like a therapist who failed her certification exam. Communication is so important. Jessica nodded like a schoolgirl being graded. Peyton lifted her wine glass. Respect is everything in a relationship, right? I looked at all three of them and saw exactly what this was. Not reconciliation, a setup, and when the bill came, they waited, expecting me to play the paying husband. Expecting me to buy forgiveness, so I picked up the check, looked at it, and said, "Split it, just me and her, the rest however they want." Silence. Shock, then panic. I stood, straightened my jacket, and walked out. No drama, no apology, just a quiet end to their little performance. Jessica stormed home later, furious. "They made us wash dishes," she shouted. "In heels, Marcus." The staff laughed at us. "You ordered the lobster," I said calmly. "That comes with sides and consequences." Her anger faltered. For the first time in months, she didn't know what to say. She paced, argued, tried to twist the narrative, but nothing stuck. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't bend. For the next few days, she became sweet, soft, overly helpful fake. I could feel it. She wasn't apologizing. She was strategizing, waiting, plotting, and on Thursday night, she finally made her move. "Leia and Peyton are grabbing wine at Casa Sol," she said lightly. "I'm meeting them for a bit." I nodded, all right. She smiled, too confidently, and when the door closed, I followed. Quiet, unseen, I didn't follow her because I was jealous. I followed her because something inside me whispered, "Watch her." This is the night she slips. I entered the restaurant discreetly, took a booth hidden behind a fern, ordered nothing, and waited. Jessica laughed real laughter, not the fake little giggles she'd been giving me all week. She leaned toward her friends, hair falling over her shoulder, glowing like someone who believed she'd already won. Then Leia refilled her glass. "So come on, Jess," she whispered. "You really went through with it." Jessica didn't hesitate. She smiled, then she said the words that made the room tilt. "Oh, I did more than go through with it. Let's just say my ex still remembers how I like things." Laughter erupted. Wine spilled, and something inside me quietly, coldly broke. She bragged, mocked me, humiliated me. She said I wouldn't notice. She said I didn't know how to keep a woman. Her friends toasted to it, and I sat in the shadows absorbing every word like a recording device. Not angry, not yelling, just still, still like steel, still like someone who finally understood what had been happening behind his back, still like someone preparing for what must come next. The others at the party began to whisper almost immediately, not loud enough to be obvious, but just loud enough that the sound carried underneath the music like a soft undercurrent of judgment. A few guests exchanged glances, their eyebrows raised, their lips pressed together in thin lines that betrayed polite disapproval. Even those who didn't know the history could feel something off in the air, and why wouldn't they? A married woman, on her birthday, glowing like a spotlight, just hit her because her ex walked into our backyard. Rico stood there, basking in the attention like a man who had just been promoted to center stage. His grin stretched wide, the kind of grin that said he thought he was irresistible, the kind of grin that had once fooled Jessica enough for them to have a whole history, and judging by the way she touched his arm, it still worked. I watched from the patio, sipping my drink, keeping my expression mild. If anyone had glanced at me, they'd think I was simply observing the festivities. Calm, detached, maybe even proud of the celebration thrown for my wife. But inside, something had settled into place. Something cold, something precise. It wasn't rage. Rage is messy, loud, blunt. This was something colder. Sharper, heavier. This was certainty. Jessica wasn't the same woman I'd married. And I didn't just mean emotionally. I meant fundamentally. She didn't love me, and honestly, maybe she hadn't for a long time. She loved the way I made her life easier. She loved the stability, she loved the house, she loved the image. She loved being able to complain about me to her friends so she could play the heroine of her own drama. But love, respect, loyalty, those were currencies she'd stopped using years ago. Rico wrapped an arm around her lower back, hand far too familiar, far too confident. I saw her lean in just slightly, a shift most people wouldn't notice, but one that told a full story. Her smile softened, her shoulders relaxed, her voice changed pitch subtly, but unmistakably. That was the smile she used to give me. Once upon a time, Before she decided that mocking me with her friends was easier than communicating. Before she decided that secrecy was easier than honesty. Before she decided that betrayal was easier than love. Peyton spotted me first. She froze, her wine glass halfway to her lips, paused as if time itself hiccuped. Her eyes widened just briefly before she pasted on a smile so stiff it almost cracked down the middle. She nudged Leia. Leia turned, followed Peyton's gaze, and then her expression flickered like a faulty bulb. Jessica didn't see me yet, so Leia leaned in and whispered something urgently into her ear. Jessica turned. Our eyes met across the yard. Her smile evaporated so fast you'd think someone had flipped a switch. Her hand dropped from Rico's arm as if it burned. She straightened her posture, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, and cleared her throat before pasting on a polite, brittle smile. "Marcus," she said too loudly, her voice lifting above the music. "Hey, you're finally mingling." Conversations around us paused. Every head turned, every guest waited, and for the first time all night, Jessica looked truly uncomfortable. I walked toward them slowly, controlled, every step measured, not threatening, not dramatic, just calm. So calm it unsettled her more than anger ever could. Rico straightened, Leia held her breath, Peyton's fingers tightened around her glass. "Looks like the party's going well," I said, my voice mild. Jessica's laugh was thin. "Yeah, we're just everyone's having fun." I nodded once. Then I looked at Rico. He tried to stand taller, puffing his chest slightly. "Hey, man," he said, extending a hand. "Good to finally meet you. Meet me, finally." So he knew he'd be here. He expected to be here, which meant Jessica invited him ahead of time. Which meant the conversation at Casa Sol wasn't just drunken bravado. It was preparation. I didn't take his hand. I simply looked at it until he awkwardly dropped it. Jessica stepped between us slightly, forcing a laugh that sounded like it was cracking at the edges. Rico just stopped by to say hi. Pure coincidence, really. Pure coincidence. Leia echoed weakly. Peyton nodded so fast it looked like her head might fall off. I took a slow sip of my drink. "Coincidence is interesting," I murmured. "Especially when it keeps repeating." Jessica blinked hard. Rico frowned, confused. I let the silence stretch until she finally broke. "Marcus," she whispered harshly, "don't do this here." "Why?" I asked. "You did." Her friends looked like they wanted to shrink into their dresses. Rico glanced between us, clueless, sensing tension but not understanding it. "I think we should talk," Jessica said, her voice strained, her smile brittle but forced for the audience. "Privately?" I shook my head once. "No, I'm done talking privately. You seem to prefer an audience." Rico's eyebrows rose. Jessica's face went pale underneath her makeup. Someone near the drinks table whispered, "Yikes." Jessica's voice dropped to a sharp whisper only I could hear. "Can you not embarrass me on my birthday?" I leaned in slightly, close enough for her to feel the shift, close enough for her to know I wasn't bluffing. "You did that the moment you brought another man into my home." Her breath hitched. For the first time that night, Jessica truly looked afraid, not of me, of consequences. She reached out as if to grab my arm, but I stepped back. "No," I said quietly, "not tonight." Her eyes glistened for a split second, but there were no tears, just fear covered in glamour. And then I did something that made her entire world tilt. I smiled. A calm, steady, composed smile. "Enjoy your party," I said, and I turned to walk away. Jessica stepped forward as if to stop me, but Rico grabbed her arm gently, confused but trying to play the hero. "Hey, Jess, you okay?" She jerked her arm away so fast he stumbled. Her friends hovered awkwardly, unsure whether to comfort her or chase me. I walked inside the house, letting the sliding door whisper shut behind me. The music grew muffled. The voices blurred into a hum. The glow of the backyard lanterns cast soft shadows across the living room walls. I set my drink on the counter, and then I did the one thing Jessica never expected. I picked up my overnight bag, the one I'd packed 3 days earlier, and walked out the front door without a sound. Not with fury, not with drama, not with threats, just calm, deliberate finality, the kind of exit that told a story. A story she would have to explain, a story she couldn't twist, A story she had authored herself. The night air was cool against my skin.
My car keys jingled in my hand. I didn't look back, not because I was stubborn, not because I wanted to hurt her.
But because the moment I stepped off that porch, I realized something. I wasn't running away from Jessica. I was walking toward myself, toward peace, toward clarity, toward a life where I wasn't the joke in someone else's story. The door behind me didn't open. She didn't chase me. She didn't call out. Because deep down, she already knew. She had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. And I wasn't stepping over it with her.